All right, so we had a pretty big heavyweight fight over the weekend. We had Joyce and Joseph Parker, and it was a really interesting matchup. I was very interested to see how Joyce would deal with someone's speed like Joseph Parker. Now, what was interesting to me was that Joseph Parker, he came into the fight at his highest weight that he had ever gone into any fight. I think he was 255, which made me think, is he giving up too much of a speed advantage? Because that's obviously his big advantage over Joyce, but I think he wanted that weight because he didn't want Joyce to just physically manhandle him. Because if you're 230 and he's 270, it's kind of like the Wilder Fury situation. And Joyce doesn't have the Wilder power, so it's kind of not Joyce. Parker doesn't have the Wilder power, so he kind of needs that extra strength. So I get that. I saw Tyson Fury ringside with Frank Warren and John Fury. Big John Fury was there. Guess they're maybe scouting out Joyce, and I know he's very good friends with Joseph Parker as well. But the fight was really interesting. So early on, you saw the speed of Parker win rounds. And what I like what Joyce did, he was just so calm, he's so patient, and he's like a lumberjack. He's, swinging, chopping the tree. And even though Joyce wasn't winning the rounds, all the early rounds, he was winning some of them, but he was losing some rounds, he was winning the fight. And what I mean by that is Joyce is not interested in winning the rounds. What he's thinking in his head is, even if this guy wins the round, I'm going to impose my will and I'm going to break him down little by little by little by little. And even if I split the first 6 rounds, I'm going to have put in so much damage to the other guy, to my opponent, that in the second half of the fight, I'm going to stop him. And that's, very similar to Bitterbiev at light heavyweight, Artur Bitterbiev. They're not focused on winning rounds. They're focused on, I'm going to impose my will, I'm going to hurt you. And it reminded me of the Bitterbiev-Gvozdyk fight. And Joyce, he's got a real stiff jab. He's got an iron jaw. He's 6'6", 270. He's a freaking bull, this guy. He's an ox. Obviously, his hand speed isn't, that great, but, he still found a way to land punches, because once you're that hurt and you get within range, he could pin you down, go to the body, go to the head. And he broke down Joseph Parker, and then in that 11th round, boom, he flatlines him, knocks him out. First person to ever knock out Joseph Parker. Very impressive victory. And I said in my top 5 heavyweight video that if Joyce or Joseph Parker dominated the other guy, they'd be in my top 5 heavyweights. I got to be consistent. Andy Ruiz is out of my top 5. Joyce takes that 5th spot. So he's definitely, pulled out a good resume. Parker, Hammer, Takam, I know those guys are a little bit older, but and Daniel Dubois. I mean, that's really impressive to beat a young prospect like that, who a lot of people are saying was next up potentially down the line. So Joyce, I think this guy is a very tough out for anybody. I could see people outboxing him, but it would be hard to hurt him. I think the only guy who I could see that could really get him out of there with one big shot is Wilder, and even that I'm not sure about. And I was actually thinking, and I thought this before this, Joyce would be a very difficult fight for Tyson Fury. I think he'd be more difficult for him than damn near anybody at the division. I would even say possibly more difficult for him than Usyk, because he's got the size, he's got the strength. I don't think Fury can hurt him. And he obviously doesn't have the speed Fury has, but he's just going to go straight forward the whole fight, not back up. He makes you fight at his pace, which Joseph Parker wasn't comfortable with. He's got a great jab. He's physically, Fury's not going to be able to just maul him like he did with Wilder, because Joyce is a bull. He's probably stronger than Fury. So it would be an interesting fight. I think that's a very difficult fight for Fury. I think that outside of Joshua, that probably is the most difficult fight for Fury, Joyce right now. But I had already thought that even going into this fight. But, maybe if it was Joyce versus Usyk's speed might just be too much, his angles and stuff. But I would like to see how Usyk deals with the guy who's, bullying him around, wrapping him up, pushing him back. You saw he had some problems when Joshua did that. And Joyce is bigger than Joshua, and he's got the better chin than Joshua. So it would definitely be interesting to see that. But Joyce looked really, really good. I was definitely very impressed with what I saw. He's 37, and he got into boxing late, but he just has so much poise in that ring, and he's so calm. He fights at his pace. speeds you up, then he wraps you up to slow you down. You never get a minute of rest with this guy either. Parker was trying to buy time, but Joyce didn't let him do it. So I think Joe Joyce is definitely a legitimate contender, and I think that he gives the top guys in the division a hard fight, much harder than most people think and much harder than most people do at that weight. I got him in my top 5 heavyweights right now. Joe Joyce, great win over Joseph Parker. Please let me know what you think. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.